architecture. Yeah. Now you know that like if it is a layered architecture, what are the packages we have? Okay, now we have a model package. Okay, now we have a controller package or UI also you can say that. Okay, now again a service package. We have tower package. We
Java
have
package
exception
exception.
and anything like I think like everything is done. Okay.
Yeah, service lo implement and interface
Yeah.
DAO lo implement.
Exactly. In the model, we have that is the entity we have, and again in the controller we have the client we have, and in the service, and the two things. One is the interface file, and one is a implemented class. And in the DAO also we have one is a interface, and one is a implementation class we have, and again exception we have that we can take like based on the requirement we can take that exception. Now again one more thing like we have the folder we have meta hyphen inf. Okay, now we are doing with like database, that's why we are going to use this folder also, the same persistence file without changes anything, we are using the same file. Okay. Okay, now here the first thing is we need to add the jar files. Now right click. Now go to the build path, configure a build path. Now add external jars. Now go to JPA, select all the jar files, open it. Okay. Now add external jars and go back and select my SQL connector and open it. Apply and close. Okay. That jar files is done. Now we need to create the structure. Okay. Now right click on the SRC, new, and the package. Now simply com.demo.model. And again under SRC, now new, create the package, com.demo.service. Now right click new, create the package, com.demo.dao. Now again new, create the package, com.demo.controller. And again we have exception also, right? Now again com.demo.exception. Okay. Yeah. Now we have one more thing. There is a folder name. Right click on the new, select the empty folder. The folder name is a capital case meta -inf. Okay, it's a naming convention. We need to follow that. Okay, under meta -inf, we need to create like one file, that is XML file. We don't have any file here. Select other. Now select XML. The file name is persistence.xml. Okay. Now, whatever the personal XML till now we use the same file, we are going to use it. Okay. Yeah. Now here we have that model, and first we need to use create, and everything is the same. Here we can use create and employee and person unit name. That's it. Yeah. In the model class, we need to create like the class name is employee. In the service, first thing is we need to create like a interface. Okay, we are dealing with employee management. That's why employee, it is a service layer. That's it, the service. That's it. Okay. Now we need to implemented class. Now the same name with IMPL. We can select the class employee service IMPL. That's it. Okay, now we need to go to the DAO. Now I click on the new, select interface first. Now employee DAO, and under case like new class employee DAO IMPL. Okay, now controller, now new class, that is a client. Okay, now exception, now we can create a employee not found exception. And again, one more, we are dealing with the database, right? Now we'll work with the database or not a valid exception, or a database exception, simply we can write it. Database exception. Okay. Now the till now the structure is not completed. Okay. Now the point, we need to start that employee. Okay. Now for this employee, now first we need to create like that entity. Okay. Again, about this entity, now we can create the table. Okay, the table here we can write the name is equal to, okay, it's a layered. The table name is a layered. Okay, now here I can give private int emp id. Now private string emp name, private int emp salary, private string emp address. Okay, about this emp id we can use what id. Now control shift to import the package. Now right click on that, go to the source, generate getters and setters, select all, generate it. We need default constructor, control space. Now enter, and again right click on this one, go to the source, generate constructor using fields, and generate it. And again right click, go to the source, generate a toString method. Done. Okay, now the model class is done. Okay, next we need to go with the service layer. Okay, we need to provide the services. Okay, now within that interface, now we need to provide the services, all our abstract classes, sorry, abstract methods we have. Now void add employee. Okay, this employee method is going to be taking like employee class and object emp. Okay, now I'm going to take like remaining also the same, like update employee. Now employee emp. Okay, now we are getting employee. Now we need to import it, employee class. Control shift to import the package. Yes. Now void delete employee. Now for that I'm going to take an employee object emp. Okay. Now employee, find employee by id. Okay, int emp id I'm going to take. Okay. Control and control shift f, control s. Okay. Now go to the service IMPL class here. Now within the service IMPL, now we need to implements. Now implements with what? Employee service. Now employee service. Now our class is getting error because of in the employee services interface. Within this interface, we have an unimplemented methods. This class is providing implementation for this all the method. That's why we need to place a cursor. Place, click on add unimplemented methods. Now the methods are added. Okay. Next. Now we need to go with the DAO package. Okay. In the DAO also we have the same thing, but a little bit different here. Observe carefully here. Now employee get employee by id. Now int emp id. Okay, control shift to import the package. Now same thing, void add employee. Okay, now employee emp. Now void update employee. Now employee emp. Now void delete employee. Now employee emp. Now up to this is common. Okay, now Here in the DO layer is only the person is going to be interacting with the database. Okay, that's why whatever that operations we are doing, like DML operation, like adding, updating, deleting, all these operations are like DML operations only. But in the case of if you want to do DML operations in the database, now we need to begin the transaction, we need to commit the transaction. Okay, those things also we need to write in the JPA. That's why I'm going to write begin transaction. Just it's a method only, but logic we are going to apply internal later. Okay, void commit transaction. Okay, now control and control shift F. Okay, now we need to get that entity manager also. Like we can write the entity manager thing also. Now get entity. Okay, now and again go to the DOIMPL. Now control space implements and employee DO. Okay, our class is getting error. Place the cursor. Add all unimplemented methods. Okay, done. Now here the database employee not found also is not completed. Right now this thing is going to be implements. Okay, it's going to be like extends it. He extends now runtime exception. Okay, now here we need like one param constructor. Now that is a string.
Message.
Now here the super message we have
Message.
super message. The same thing here in the database exception also. This thing is going to be extensive with a runtime exception. Now here control space database exception. Here we can write like string message. Now here super of message we can write it. Okay, now I hope like everything is done. Like, yeah, one more point in the DO layer, we are going to add extra. Okay, in the DO layer till now we wrote like only the DO interface and DO IMPL. But if you want to do the DO interaction in the normal JPA, what we did like we need entity manager and entity object we need. Okay, if we want to get like entity manager factory and entity manager and entity object, now we need to write those two lines of code. Then where and how we are going to write here, just observe carefully here. Okay, now how I'm writing that those two lines here. Now we can write only the two lines, or otherwise simply we can write different ways here. New, I'm going to create like one more class in the DO layer only we need to create, not in the other layer. Okay, now the class name is a JPA util. Okay, in the util, I'm going to create like a private static. Okay, now entity manager factory. Okay, now factory I'm going to write, and again private static entity manager and entity I'm going to create. Okay, the two variables I created. Now I'm going to write like one static block. The static block is going to be executing before the main method. Okay, before the main method. Now we need the persistence class dot create entity manager factory. We know that like there is a we wrote like Kirti. Now this create entity manager factory is written type is a factory object. Now the factory. Okay, this factory we wrote here. Nothing is there. Okay, I want to create like one method to get the entity. Okay, we need finally entity object. Now for that, I can get like public static entity manager. Sorry, static entity manager get entity manager. Okay, two lines మనం ఇలా రాస్తాం third ఏం లేదు. Okay, now here the point is if entity object is null or now if entity is not equals to open, Then I want to return factory dot, okay, create entity manager. This create entity manager is return is a entity. Okay, now finally this method is a return entity. That's it. Okay, now we got finally the entity object. Okay, this object I want inside the DAO MPL. ఓకే అంతే కదా. ఈ డిఏఓ ఎంపీఏలో డాటా అనేది ఫస్ట్ ఈ ఎంటిటీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ నుంచి వస్తుంది, ఎందుకంటే ఈ ఎంటిటీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ యూజ్ చేసి మనం పర్సిస్ట్ అప్డేట్ మర్జ్ రిమూవ్ మెథడ్ యూజ్ చేస్తాం. మరి ఈ ఎంటిటీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ ఈ డిఏఓ ఎంపీఎల్లోకి ఎలా వస్తుంది? ఓకే, దట్ ఈస్ ద పాయింట్ వీ నీడ్. ఓకే, హౌ వీఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు గెట్ దిస్ ఎంటిటీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ ఇన్సైడ్ దిస్ డిఏఓ ఎంపీఎల్. Okay, now we can create an object. Then how we can create object? Observe carefully here. Now object of creating entity. Okay, but basically we cannot create object, right? Entity manager. Why? It's interface. Okay, now directly I can use the reference. Now private entity manager, just entity. Now if we want this object, now we need to get this method. Okay, we need to get this method. How we are going to get this method? Now whenever the DAO IMPL object is created internally, ante now DAO IMPL అనేది class కదా. Now default constructor. Okay, whenever the default object is created, default constructor going to be called. Okay, now control space, select default constructor of employee DAO IMPL. Now here ఎప్పుడైతే డిఫాల్ట్ కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ క్రియేట్ అయిపోతుందో అప్పుడు ఆబ్జెక్ట్ కాల్ అవుతుంది. ఎప్పుడైతే ఇక్కడ డిఫాల్ట్ కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ క్రియేట్ అయిపోతుందో అప్పుడు ఏం చేయాలంటే నా JPA util dot get entity manager. Okay, this will return that entity. That's it. We got finally entity object. Okay, ఈ డిఫాల్ట్ కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ ఆఫ్ డిఏఓ ఐఎంపిఎల్ ఎప్పుడైతే ఈ క్లాస్ యొక్క ఆబ్జెక్ట్ క్రియేట్ అయిపోతుందో ఇమీడియట్ గా ఈ జేబీటిల్ డాట్ గెట్ ఎంటిటీ మేజర్ కాల్ అవుతుంది, అప్పుడు ఎంటిటీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ రిటర్న్ చేస్తుంది. అదే ఎంటిటీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ మనం ఇక్కడ రాసాం గ్లోబల్ లో. ఓకే, నౌ దిస్ థింగ్ వీ కెన్ యూజ్ ఎవ్రీవేర్ హియర్. ఓకే, నౌ first one is what get employee by ID. Okay, if you want to get it, first we need to find out. Now by using entity object data find method, that is employee dot class. Okay, now here we can provide a emp id. Okay, now this find method is return type is a employee object. Now employee emp. Okay, now I'm going to write some condition. Okay, now here I can write like a try catch block. That's better, later we can write it. Now if emp is double equals to null. Okay, if emp is double equals to null, throw. Okay, throw new database exception. Okay, database exception. Now what is that? Error not found. Okay, no, employee not found with the id. Now simply here we can write emp id comma null, we can write it. Okay, now this database exception, like we need to add that. Now we need to add a throw declaration. Now here we can add the try block, try open, and after this emp we can close it. Now here we can write the catch block. Within the catch block, simply exception e. Now here if the data is there, it will display. Now if it's not there, like a database exception, now here I can write a error with fetching employee id. Now E I can write it. Done. Okay. Now this is about like a getting employee. Now I want to add employee. Okay. If you want to add employee, we can use what only the persist method. Now under try block, try open, try close. Now within the try, I can write entity dot the persist of EMP. Okay. Now the catch block is going to be display that. Now here we can write exception, throw new database exception. Now error adding employee. Now the same thing here I can write it, but here error with adding employee. Okay. Now update. Okay. Now if you want to update, first we need to again like first we need to fetch it, I think. Okay. Now we can use like a merge method. Now the same try block. Okay, entity dot merge method of emp. Now this catch block, the same thing here, control copy and control v. Okay, now it is updating employee. Okay, updating employee. Now delete employee. Delete in the sense like we can use what, remove. Simply the same thing I'm going to copy, control copy and control v. Here we can use the remove method. That's it. Remove of emp. Now here deleting employee. Okay. Now begin transaction. How we can write the begin transaction? Now entity dot get a transaction dot begin. Now here entity dot get a transaction dot commit. Now for this entity manager, okay. Now we can write just entity only. That's it. It will return entity object. Okay. Now this is about like the DAO layer we have. Okay. Now what about like the service IMPL? Okay. In the service IMPL, I want to get the data from DAO IMPL to service IMPL. ఓకే, మనకు కావాల్సింది ఏంటి? రైట్ నౌ ప్రతి ఒక్క డాటా ఎక్కడ ఉంది? డిఏఓ లేయర్ లో ఉంది. ఓకే, ఈ డాటా అనేది డిఏఓ లేయర్ నుంచి నాకు సర్వీస్ ఐఎంపీఎల్కి రావాలి, ఇక్కడికి రావాలి. Then how we are going to get that? Now we can create object of, we need object of a DAO layer. Okay, ఎలా తీసుకొద్దాం సింపుల్ గా అంటే, నా ప్రైవేట్ ఎంప్లాయీ DAO. Okay, a control shift to import the package of DAO. Now we can call a default constructor of, okay, default constructor of service IMPL. ఎప్పుడైతే సర్వీస్ IMPL ఆబ్జెక్ట్ క్రియేట్ అయిపోతుందో, మీన్స్ లైక్ డిఫాల్ట్ కన్స్ట్రక్టర్ కాల్ అయిపోతుందో, అప్పుడు నా అప్పుడు ఏం చేయాలంటే మనం డిఏఓ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ క్రియేట్ చేయాలి. నా సింపుల్ హౌ ఇట్ విల్ కాల్ ఇన్ ద సెన్స్ డిఏఓ ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు న్యూ like employee DAO IMPL. That's it. Okay, now it will call it at both direction. Now we got like object of DAO. Now object of DAO we got, we can add, we can update, we can do all these things. Okay, now here if you want to do add, update, delete, we need to do begin the transaction and commit the transaction. Okay, మనం manipulation చేయాలంటే కంపల్సరీగా ఈ begin transaction like a commit transaction compulsory యూజ్ చేయాలి. Okay, now just to give a minute. Now DAO dot begin the transaction. Okay, whenever there will be a chance of getting error whenever you are adding employee. Okay, now for that we can use DAO dot add employee and again DAO dot commit transaction. Now later we can use the catch block. Okay, for this catch block, uh, okay, if the data is not there, I want to roll back it. Okay, now DAO dot get a transaction or get entity manager dot like get a transaction dot rollback. Okay, now I've put that through key. That's it. Now here update also will be the same thing. Now we can write like only update employee. Now we can copy this one. Control copy and the control V. Now add employee not. Now DAO dot update employee. Done. Again delete also will be the same thing. Okay, delete also we can add the same thing like instead of that update we can use a delete. Now copy this one, delete it. DAO dot delete employee. Done. Next, find by employee ID. Then how we can get that find by employee ID here? Now DAO dot get employee by ID already is there. Now based on that employee ID, now this employee ID is a return type is a employee object. Now employee EMP. Now the condition here we can write. Now if EMP is double equals to null, I want to throw an exception. Now throw new employee not found exception. The message is what employee with the ID, simply here EMP ID. Okay, now not found. Okay, now simply finally it will return EMP, otherwise it will return EMP. Yeah, done. Okay, now the DAO layer is done. Okay, now the DAO layer is done. Next, we'll go with like the main class. Do we have anything? Everything is done, I think. Yeah, go to the client. Okay, in the client, first we need to create like the main method. Okay, now here we need to create an object of service. Why? In the sense like right now the data is present in the service layer. We need to access in the main class. Now employee service. Now service is equal to new employee service IMPL. Okay. Now control shift to import the package of service. Done. Okay, now I'm going to write an exception. There will be a chance of getting exception. Simply the catch block I can write here. Employee not found exception. Now something here. Now system dot error dot println. Okay. Now I want to print error plus e dot get message. Okay. Now we have one more thing, catch block also we can write it, the main exception. If any employee not found exception is there, like we can go with like main exception, like SYSO. Now an unexpected exception. That is what e dot get message. Okay, there will be chance. That's why I wrote like within the tribe lock I'm gonna write. Okay, now simply we need to create object of employee. Employee EMP is equal to new. Okay, now control shift dot import the package of employee. Like why it's not getting- yeah, it's equal to new employee. But suppose 100 ID now, like it's a Karthik. Now something. Now here like object is created. Then how we can call that add employee? Now we are not going to use persist method. Why? Already we wrote the logic already in the DAO. Now we can use the service object dot add employee. Okay. Now add employee we can use what? Now simply we can pass that EMP. That's it. Okay. Now I am going to executing. Right click, run as Java application. Now yeah, table is created here. Insert into table is created. The data is also inserted. Now I want to fetch the data. Now simply I can comment the 16th line. I want to fetch the data. If you want to fetch it now, simply we can use service dot find by employee ID. Okay, that ID is like 100 we can use. Okay, now which employee do you want? This method is return type is employee object. Now employee emp1. Okay, based on this emp1 syso, I want to print that emp1. Okay, if I execute, right click, we need to change it to update. Go to the person.xml, change it to update here. Okay, now go to the client class again, right click, run as Java application. Now here we got like 100, Karthik, 8973, and Ohio. Now we got output. Now the same thing here. I want to update the data. Okay. Now here I can write it. Fetching the data from database. No, updating data from database. Okay. Now update చేయాలి. Then how I can update the data? అంటే ఈ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ యూజ్ చేసుకుని మనం అప్డేట్ చేయాలి, ఎందుకంటే ఈ ఆబ్జెక్ట్ లోకి మనం డాటా అంతా ఫెచ్ చేసాం. నా emp1 dot set address, simply here Hyderabad. Now emp1 dot set, now name like Satya. emp1 dot set salary something 7,000. Okay, now I updated. Then how I can update? Simply by using service object dot update employee, we can pass that emp1. Okay, the data is updated. Now here right click, run as a Java application. See here, that update layered set emp add emp name emp self here. But here we can see the Karthik details only, right? Okay, if you want to see that updated data, you can comment the 27th line updated employee. Now again you can fetch the data. Now you can see that updated data. See here, we got like Satya and salary 70,000. Hyderabad, we got it. Okay. Now after updating, now I want to delete it. Now service dot okay, delete employee emp1. Control is right click, run as Java application. Okay, the employee is deleted. Okay, now after deleting again, if you want to fetch it, see here, we don't have any employee, but you want to fetching that employee 100. Right click, run as Java application. Now see here, we got some exception, database exceptions here, like a com.demo.exception, database exception, employee not found with ID with 100. Okay, we don't have any employee. Okay, yeah. Now like that, we can create the layered architecture or any project. Okay, not only this employee, we can create like any type of project. Okay, now this is about like layered architecture. Now we completed the JPA. Now tomorrow we are going to start that Spring. Okay, yeah, I will share the notes and interview questions, everything.